Hey, what's up guys, Flo here, and in today's video we'll talk about how to take great pictures with your smartphone. In this case we took all the pictures with the Huawei Mate 10 Pro. In the second half of this video I'll tell you more about editing these pictures on your smartphone and let them rock your Instagram feed. I'd say let's jump right in. Yesterday we had a beautiful day here in Vienna, so Steve and I went for a little ride with our motorbikes and took some nice pictures. To start improving your skills, it's very important just to go out and take pictures. Go out and see what is in front of you, play around with different perspectives, be open for different lights and play with the shadow. But most important, just have fun. Before you go out, make sure to set up your smartphone camera and play around with different settings. Most important for beginners is to switch on the grid. There might be different ones for some phones, but you basically can choose the one you like most. Also make sure to have set the right resolution and aspect ratio for your pictures. Most smartphones also have additional features, for example styles, most of them just being a filter. But with the upcoming of a dual camera setup, there comes something new into the game. With the Huawei phones, a monochrome sensor, with LG a wide angle sensor, and with iPhone a telephoto sensor, so that you have different styles for your pictures. All of the flagships also have a Pro mode, where you can have all your adjustments for yourself and decide what picture you want to take. Let me quickly introduce you to the most important settings in Pro mode. It's important to understand the triangle of exposure. There's aperture, ISO and shutter speed, all neatly influencing each other. If you want to get it right, you have to understand what they do and how you can use them. Aperture is a measure of how open or closed the lens iris is. A wider aperture or lower f-number means more light will be let in by the lens, simply because the opening is larger. A narrow aperture or higher f-number allows less light to reach the sensor. You might wonder why we ever want less light to reach the sensor. Well, the answer, the majority of the time, is that we want a larger depth of field. And depth of field is a byproduct of aperture. Narrower aperture, high f-numbers, give a greater depth of field, allowing more of a scene to be in focus. Thinking about landscapes or something like this. Wider apertures, lower f-numbers, on the other side, create a narrower depth of field, which can help isolate a subject and is one of the greatest compositional tools at our disposal. Speed shutter speed is a measure of how long the shutter remains open, and thus how long the sensor is exposed to light. Faster shutter speeds give the sensor less time to collect light and thus result in a lower exposure. Slower shutter speeds allow more time for the sensor to collect light and result in a higher exposure. In this case, the reason we might want to use a higher shutter speed is the stop motion, whether that be a camera shake or a subject that is moving, allowing us to maintain sharpness. Remember, as long as the shutter is open, the camera is essentially recording the position of every element in the frame. And if one of those elements move, the result will often be undesired blurriness. Many photographers will argue that this is the most important aspect, saying if your shutter speed isn't fast enough to give you a sharp image, nothing else will save the image. Finally, ISO. We can control the sensitivity of the digital sensor on the fly. Though technically we're not controlling the sensitivity, this actually controls a post-image gain applied to a signal. But for all intents and purposes, you can think of this as a sensitivity. Increasing the ISO essentially allows you to work with less light. As always, there is a trade-off. Increased ISO results in increased noise and less detail. Noise is the result of random fluctuations in an electrical signal. Having this in mind, it's time to move to some practice. In my opinion, what's most important is picture composition and the rule of thirds. When framing a photo, imagine the scene divided or switch on the grid as mentioned in the beginning. Think about what elements of the photo are most important to you and try to position them at or near the lines of intersection. They don't have to be perfectly lined up as long as they are close. The sky should either take up 1 or 2/3 and the main subject in a photo should be positioned near lines of intersections for maximum impact. You may need to move around to get the best composition. This forces you to think more carefully about the shot, and it's a good habit to get into whether you're using the rule of thirds or not. Further, learn how to see light. If you're going to go out and make pictures that impresses your friends, you're going to need good light. Good light is the kind of light that gives you a scene, a shape, depth, and makes things look interesting. Generally, shooting indoors with artificial light or outdoors midday or with the overcast sky is bad. Very flat and boring light there. You'll know flat light when you see it. There are few shadows, if any. Everything looks even lit. Look for light with some kind of direction and color. This type of light happens naturally at just before sunrise and at sunset. In the end, try shooting a little every day. If you're lacking inspiration some days, shoot anyway. Shoot what's in front of you. Find a better angle. Shoot it in macro. Just make it interesting. And that's what you'll end up doing most of the time and in most situations. Usually holidays are a great time to improve your skills. That's when you have the most time to play around and do what you like. But never forget to think about nice shots also in your daily life. So we're now at the second part of this video, and I'll show you in the Huawei Mate 10 Pro how to edit your pictures. So let's jump right in. So I personally like to use the Lightroom app, which you can download in the Play Store. So I go to all photos here after this step, and I'll take pictures from the Huawei Mate launch. So we've been there for a nice dinner in the evening, and these are a couple of other YouTubers. First, I load the picture into Lightroom, and I go in here. When I do this first, I go to light and I check for auto. In my opinion, this is now a bit overexposed, so I go down to exposure and drag it a bit down so it looks perfect to me now. I can go here as well and push the highlights a bit down, but that's perfect. Shadows a bit up, I'd say. Awesome, yeah? From here, I go to color. In color, most pictures on your smartphone, they have enough information in a picture, but you kind of have to punch the colors a bit to make it more outstanding. That's what I prefer to do. So go to vibrance and play around with that. Usually go down with vibrance a bit and go up with saturation. But also keep in mind that one color isn't popping out too much, right? In the next step here for this picture, I'd say I would go and kind of crop it first, which I'm going to do here, because I want the focus on, I have to go to custom here. I want to have the focus on the people themselves. So maybe I'll just use 1-to-1 from Instagram, put the people in here. I hope some of you can recognize them. So if you're Mr. Who is the Boss, that's me. That is Louis from Unbox Therapy, Danny Widget, and Adam, Mr. Typebox himself. Well, for me, this picture looks already great. I put a little bit of clarity on it, so, and do some dehighs here. Put vignette amount a bit down, so you get a bit of punching in the end. So that's it for this picture on a smartphone. I think it looks great. It's perfect for your Instagram story and for your first shot. Just have to go to export, sharing this picture, and you're ready to go. So if you're a second picture, which I did on the picture tour there back in Munich. So we had a kind of photo excursion there and we're taking some pictures, and I was speaking there with a professional as well. And that's what the picture I took with the monochrome lens of the Huawei Mate 10 Pro. I kind of like the shot, but that's the editing I did on it. And I'll now show you a few before and after examples of what you can achieve with some editing on your smartphone. I hope you like them. So we're now at the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, if so, head down to the comments, let me know what you think. Also make sure to like and subscribe and everything else. Well, I'm Flo from TechMagnet, and I'll catch you in the next one.